I just want to, before you start, Scott, I just want to thank you for agreeing to facilitate our final portion of the day here, and I'll leave you to it.
Of course. So I know how it is at the end of a conference, but I'm just going to tee up online. So this is the good news. You get to stand up, go to a mic, and give feedback on takeaways on how we're going to address this. Now, I'm going to start by saying granular equals 0, right? The closer, the more granular we get, the closer we get to 0. Okay, so what I want to do is just facilitate a short discussion on how we reduce crashes. I took a couple pictures. I ended up leaving my phones down on the table. But like we started off with all this great work going on, I have no doubt that we're saving lives, and that's exciting. But it's not getting us to where we want to go. So what I want to know is, what takeaways do you have from this this conference? What things are you, what do you see that you've learned that you could maybe apply in your state, in your division? And I'm going to tee up the industry real quick and ask for comments from the industry perhaps first on ideas on how we can partner with them to reduce crashes, and know that how much I appreciate the industry participating in this this partnership for safety and what we're all trying to accomplish. So we're going to jump right into it. Please, online, if you'd throw into the chat, if you're willing to, hit the unmute button and jump in, so we can kind of all just give feedback and how we can continue to drive this towards 0. Thank you.
Administrator Hernandez, I think my biggest take is higher speeds cause more damage. I would be interested to know what the data is when the speed limits were lower on fatalities. And that's very concerning, I think, for us in the industry.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I think it's something worth doing, right? And looking at, but as we saw technology move forward, airbags and such, and then speed limits increase, definitely perhaps speed overtook the technology that was installed in cars. And you know what, let's just go back to seatbelts. It was on so many slides on here, and why are we still struggling to get people to wear seatbelts in commercial vehicles and in POVs? It's beyond me, but I think that's one of the things that we need to continue to work on, because it definitely saves lives. Who else? What other takeaways? What other partnerships? While somebody's walking up or wants to jump in, I'll say this. One of the trends. So I'm competitive. I think I said that before. I have Region 4. In Region 4, we have California and Texas. Texas has the most fatalities. It's a huge state, huge population, a lot of roadways, as we saw in their great presentations. How do we reduce crashes out of Texas? Because you heard several other presentations, including our last one by Captain Dittman, talked about how some domiciled carriers in Texas had done this. So where are the domiciled carriers, and how can we address those and partner? When we ask our state divisions to develop plans, the Montana division looked at where carriers were domiciled and where they were crashing in their state, and then they partnered with the state of Washington to address similar issues. So I think sometimes one of the things that we can do definitely to advance is to continue to work across state lines and be more borderless when it comes to our approach at reducing crashes. Okay, so this is interactive, or it's going to be a very short segment. But in all seriousness, if you wouldn't mind sharing, just jumping up and sharing a few quick thoughts on future safety summits, feedback for this safety summit, even if it's constructive criticism, we want to know, and we want to hear what you'd like to see in the future.
Great, thank you. So a couple things, at a high level, one of the things that jumped out to me over the course of the last couple of days is just the commonality of some of the issues, right? It's been a very long time since we've had an opportunity, many of us, to sit in the same room and talk through these issues, and just simply doing it virtually just isn't the same. It's really on the breaks and things where you really get a chance to sit and talk through some things. So I think that's a huge takeaway is when I heard Arizona, and I still need to pick Arizona's brain a little bit, about, mountain driving issues and issues along a corridor, and I'm familiar with the 17 there. I drive it a few times a year. So hearing those things and speed and all of those kinds of things, it doesn't matter if you're in Colorado, if you're in Arizona, Texas, and you really want to get granular about things in Texas, the issues are the same. The other thing, a couple other things, is the great use of data. None of us in the enforcement world are going to be able to expect to see in the coming years some explosion of personnel, right? I think the way you get closer to safety, to the ultimate safety goal, is through the really smart use of data, trying to figure out better ways to make the data work for us so that we're not taking the beehive approach. And I love that too. I'm gonna steal that. You should trademark that, baby. Because that's so often what we do. We push people in a given direction to try to solve the issue, and more people presence is great, but being smarter about it is really, I think, the path forward. So those were my key takeaways. And so I for purposes of future discussions, I'd like to see more about how folks are using their data. Again, the presentation from Arizona on the heat mapping that you do and all of that, I think was tremendous. And I've got a couple business cards coming your way. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it over here.
I always hate following John because he's a lot more eloquent as far as his speaking is concerned. But nevertheless, we want to thank North Dakota State for putting this on. We appreciate the opportunity to finally come out and kind of get out from underneath our basements. We really appreciated the numerous different topics that you were able to cover. We thought that was a great idea as far as all the different topics that you had. About every 15, 20 minutes, you kind of had a different speaker, which we felt was very, very good. In regards to fatalities, an interesting thing over the course of my 34 years is it always seems it kind of follows economics. It follows the fuel prices, gas prices. It would be nice if all states would have a seatbelt law, but that's not going to be the case. We also have the environmental as far as floods and snow and that sort of thing. So those are always factors that we have to take into consideration on, our fatality rate for a particular year. Sometimes that's high, sometimes that's low, and then we often go off from a 5-year cycle as far as the rate is concerned. Last but not least, it's been interesting to hear about the technological advancements, especially with the lane departures, the platooning for the trucks. What I thought was very, very interesting, and I think maybe might be something to take a look at actually, is the Smart Cap EEG technology, which I had no idea what that was until I Googled it, and how that might be able to affect hours of service regulations for that in upcoming issues as far as hours of service. So that's what I had, and I'll leave it up to Mike after this.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone online? I don't see anything in the chat yet. Mike.
You give people from Nebraska a chance to talk, we will. First of all, Captain Dittman, where'd you go? I had never thought that Nebraska probably needed to concern themselves with runaway trucks and mountain driving until your presentation. Nebraska feeds Colorado, right? So we've got vehicles that leave our state. That kind of thinking really only happens in an environment like this. So thank you.
Awesome.
my takeaway, I think, really boils down to the fact that everybody in this room faces the same problem, whether it's industry, government, enforcement, and that's people are losing their lives in crashes. And there's an opportunity, I think, to share data that we're not grabbing a hold of with both hands right now. And what I mean by that is, I had a really good discussion with a trucking company in Nebraska. And one of the topics we bantered back and forth about was, gee, if law enforcement knew where commercial drivers had to do hard brake events, and if it happens routinely at the same place, is that telling us something about that part of the roadway that we need to address? And it just seems to me that everybody tries to be really tight-fisted with their information, right? It's something I can use and I can do that and I can make it better. But the fact is, we've all got the same problem. And if we can kind of pull those blinders off a little bit, and as much as as possible, right? I mean, there's certain things you can and can't do, but boy, if we could get to that level where we're back and forth between industry, government, and enforcement, and we're sharing all that data, what an opportunity that might present for us.
Thank you very much. And we'll adopt you for the Western region. Thank you. Yeah.
Nebraska shouldn't follow Colorado because John's such a good speaker, and Dan, well, he graduated from Nebraska, so I think that kind of says most of it there. Sorry for the other folks. It's just Dan that I pick on. The collaborations are obviously the key. Everybody that talked about here said how they got together with somebody else, and it's not exactly new information. We've been doing that for several years, but I think breaking out of some of the normal collaborations, like some folks on the presentations and that we've heard about, you know, instead of just going to your DOT or some of your local enforcement, get the industry more involved, especially on the data side, because when you need granular data to solve a specific problem, sometimes it's that industry side of things that have that. And the other big takeaway that I guess I'm going home with, that's I guess not as common, but it's the automated vehicle technologies that are coming, because every one of the causes of the crashes that we talked about were all human factors, whether it was the driver of the CMV or the four-wheeler. They're all human factors. I think the one slide showed only 9% of the crashes involved a vehicular defect. But I think being able to leverage that vehicle safety equipment in the near future as it comes more prolific, I think that's going to be our biggest key to take that human element out of there. Because even if that vehicle to vehicle technology or the automated braking technology, even if they only cut 30% of our crashes down, you know, that's 10 to 15,000 lives that we're going to shave right off the top. So I think finding a way to, and you kind of got to pick a horse to run with, and there's so many of those different technologies out there. But I think between the federal agencies and the state agencies, getting on board with a path on some of those, especially the vehicle infrastructure options, and then so we can run with that, I think that's going to be one of our biggest hits to that fatality rate that we're going to make in the next 15 years. And a lot of us won't see it, but we're the one laying the foundation to get those technologies involved into our programs and into the manufacturers and things like that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Is there anyone that has an idea on just a future idea of where we should go, what we should focus on as a whole team to accomplish our goals? Is there a next step in engineering or communication that we should try to take this? Something creative, new, kind of spark during this.
I don't know if I can be creative or not, but I was really happy with pretty much everything. Couple of things that I think we could do more on. Truck parking is obviously a hot topic, especially out in Washington. We kind of made a deal with the devil here a couple of years ago that we gave up a small way station at the intersection of I-90 and a state route. They wanted to build an overpass to get traffic off of I-90 onto westbound state route. We said, well, we'll save you some money. We'll give up this way station. You can build your overpass, and then you help us build a bigger way station on the eastbound side, because we have virtually no scale going eastbound on 90. The plan was to build a scale with 70 parking spots. We're down to 11. We have a somewhat small community that has gotten legislature involved in it, and needless to say, we're hoping that we can still build the scale, but we're on a small sliver of land now. I spent 25 years in the trucking industry driving before I, as my friends put it, went to the dark side. That doesn't make me an expert, but it gives me some experience. You get to 8 o'clock at night, and if you can find a parking spot, you're really lucky in a lot of places. Shippers and receivers don't want to see you until 5 minutes before you're supposed to deliver your load or pick up your load. They don't have places for you to park. And in Seattle in particular, we have one major truck stop east of Seattle. And the ramps fill up. We have a mountain east of Seattle that often closes in the wintertime. And then we stack up trucks. And the community wants us to come out and push those trucks out of there because they're parking illegally, but we have no place to put them. And yet they don't want us building parking lots and larger truck stops. So that's a real issue for Washington is truck parking. And then the other thing, there was one of the presenters that talked about doing outreach programs. And our experience in Washington, we do that a lot. We offer to go out to any trucking company that wants to give us an opportunity to come in and talk to them face to face. Figure it's a better opportunity to talk with the drivers on a friendlier basis, a more relaxed basis, versus roadside when we're maybe having to have a conversation of what not to do in the future. And I think we can make a difference that way. And Wolf Creek Pass, I drove it one time, and that was enough. It was good. Yeah. Did they ever put guardrails up?
They don't last long enough.
Yeah.
They don't stop you. Yeah. No, thank you very much for your comments. So before, I don't want to forget this. So let's give a round of applause for all the presenters. It doesn't mean we're getting up and leaving quite yet, but let's give a round of applause for all the presenters, everyone, the hard work that went in your presentations, and the different thoughts that were covered during this conference. So I want to thank them. What's next? One of the other things that is clear, and I'm sitting here watching this screen for someone online. I know that 80 people were online. Brenda, how many people are online right now?
We still have 70 people online.
Okay, so 70 people online, and this is, I think we're proving the value of face-to-face interaction and our opportunity to get back out with industry and have more face-to-face interaction, and the public, people driving, car POVs, and have that face-to-face interaction. Because the reality of it is, in the virtual world, we can make it work, and we did through a very difficult time, but it's not the same as being able to be here. And as John pointed out, we all walk out in the hallway and have an interaction that means something different than being virtual. It's more difficult to be in the virtual world. So definitely we're proving the value of meeting face to face for sure. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I apologize if this is already underway, but it might be useful if all the attendees could maybe get a message back with points of contact of all of the representatives that were here, with their name, email address, whether they're a enforcement or government industry contact, so that we would have those to reach out to going forward. So, all
We will send that out.
right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And online too, because, we'll get everyone that was online also during this entire time, because they might want to reach out and have contact with people, presenters, and everything like that. Yes, sir.
I'd be mad at myself if I didn't ask this, but going through the MixApp comprehensive policy the other day, and I noticed drones being mentioned in there and the funding for drones being available. And I'd like to ask the group or anyone out there if you are utilizing drones for motor carrier work, how you're using them. In addition, we have great success using aircraft for right-of-way violations. However, it's obviously expensive, but it's probably one of our most effective ways to work right-of-way for commercial vehicles. So I guess I'm looking at utilizing drones for right-of-way enforcement. It's a little bit controversial in our state just because of the big brother watching type, but I would like to explore it, and I'd like to talk to anyone that is doing that. It's in the policy, so someone, I guess, has to be using it somewhere in the nation. I just don't know who that is. And if anyone in the room is, please. Okay. Okay, maybe I'll visit with you a little bit offline here then. But if anyone else has anything.
Lieutenant Dovak, could you repeat that? Could you repeat the comment?
Oh, sure. He was saying that Arizona's using it for hazmat type work. I would assume flying over, doing inspections on tankers. Okay. Yeah, I would love to use it for right away because we're using aircraft. Or I got a pilot up there. I have a FLIR operator.
I was told just a couple days ago that there's a county in the state of Colorado that's using drones for speed enforcement. So I'll let you know what we find out. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'll let you know if we find out that is true or not and what they're using it for.
I figured it was in the policy so someone has to be doing it. Yeah. Otherwise it wouldn't be in there. But
it wasn't a MixApp funded drone. It's a county.
Sure.
I don't know where they got the money from, but it sounded like they were doing some speed enforcement on a high crash area in the county.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we have a question online. Thanks, Don. Thanks, Don Ross.
I was just going to ask Don if you could just unmute and ask it.
Oh yeah, Don, you want to unmute? Let's try that.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, loud and clear.
Okay. All right. So we, as far as drones go in the West, I'm not 100% certain we fund any drones with MixApp funds in the West. However, in other regions, they do fund drones for crash reconstruction. Is currently the only use that I'm aware of for MixApp funding. However, yeah, the policy doesn't restrict, good ideas. So if you come up with something that makes sense and will work, I'm sure we can definitely visit that when you enter that into your CVSP as a request in your budget.
So
if that helps.
So Don, there's a follow-up question to that. So go ahead.
Just again, wondering on that, has anyone considered using it for, we're new to the drone world, but we just put a FLIR on one of our drones and we can set the temperature on that drone to detect, a certain range temperature. So we were actually trying to think of different ways we could use it for CMV work. And we were thinking, quick checks of trucks for brakes that aren't working, because we can set that temp to a specific range and we could see if brakes are completely not being used or ineffective, defective, I guess. Yeah. So that was another application, but just kind of exploring that up in North Dakota, how we could use them.
So now Leonard has a new idea for checking brakes on the mountain corridor. Sounds good. And then Don, you had more.
Yeah. So I do have another question. So this is towards the states, particularly the MixApp lead agencies. Do the state partners see any opportunities for multi-state, multi-jurisdiction, high visibility traffic enforcement, / inspection details or strike forces in the west, something above and beyond the current CVSA operations. They do something similar to what I'm talking about in the east. I forgot what it's called off the top of my head, but where they get together. Yeah.
Yeah, every region, primarily except the West, has a specific effort that they try through their region to do, and the East really leads with a work zone, and then a corridor, a traffic corridor type of environment. Joe, hold on, Don, 1 second. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to pipe into that. The MixApp planning memo for the coming year, which came out like yesterday or the day before, has a huge emphasis on traffic enforcement. We're really looking for the states to fully utilize the flexibility of MixApp to a point where we haven't, I don't think, really gotten to the percentages that are allowed on traffic enforcement, because there are some allowances within the grants to go, a little bit higher than what we've done before. So particularly traffic enforcement, and on top of that, traffic enforcement in work zones. Because when you talk about, when you say granular is 0, if you look at where a majority of our fatalities have been coming from, and a majority of the increase in fatalities have been coming from, it's speed related and it's work zone related in particular. So for any of the states, as we're starting to think about what next year looks like, we put a real heavy emphasis on that in this planning memo for the next grant cycle.
Absolutely, yeah. And and it's interesting because vehicles backed up in a queue, like the Colorado crash that happened out here, it's common, right? And it's very similar to that slowdown that occurs in a work zone. And then I'll offer up our Chief Safety Officer and Executive Director, Jack Van Steenberg. Look, if I know what it looks like. When we're trying to do these efforts, and the states are doing all kinds of different efforts, right? And losing perhaps a reduction in workforce. If it'll help to partner up Jack Van Steenberg with your colonels, if I can call them, whatever it'll take, let us know to maybe talk to them about how that can work. And try to build that partnership on how we can develop maybe a perfect model of what traffic enforcement and compliance looks like in vehicles around trucks and commercial vehicles in that partnership. But I'll definitely, if you need someone to make the phone call, I know he'd be more than happy to do that. Because it is competing. We already talked about that. It is a competing effort sometimes.
So Scott, we do have a hand raised. Brian Preston,
Awesome.
if you'd like to unmute.
Brian. Hey, thanks, Brian.
Howdy, I'm pressing the, can you hear me? I'm
yeah, you're loud and clear.
Great. Well, I'm always loud. Clear is the question. And this one's really posed to the states, and little insider knowledge. I know it would be possible to Arizona to do this. I know that it isn't presently part of their capability, but my experience with the state, I know it would be possible. We look at the inspection numbers 1, 2, and 3. The thing I think is missing, and I wonder if any state has the ability easily to do it, or if there'd be some sort of programming change. I know Arizona would have to programming change and get it added to into their tracks data as a selection. Is any state able to kind of give an idea of, for instance, let's say we're going to go out into level 3 inspections, but once you stop the truck, you realize, this at least needs a 2, or maybe this needs to go to a 1. And I just wonder if there would be any value in being able to see what we thought the inspection was going to start as and what it ended as, because in the end, we only see the numbers as they arrive later on. And so you can say, well, why is this state so low on 3s? Well, maybe that state really wasn't low on 3. Maybe it was a situation where the state really wanted to go out there and do a lot of 3s, but what they kept encountering was inspections that needed a 2 or a 1 based on what they were seeing there. So, like I said, I know it would be a capacity of the Arizona system, just because I'm familiar of the various selections that can be added. I just was wondering if any state presently has that ability.
Anyone? Anyone online? If you do and you're online, just go ahead and hit unmute and go ahead and jump in. So hearing nothing, Brian, I think it's a great idea. We'll call Arizona, and I think you just volunteered them, right?
Yeah, Ed, I heard Ed on when he was presenting yesterday. Captain Sharpenstein, we go way back.
Absolutely.
I'll call him his rank now. But Captain Sharpenstein talked about how they really target twos to start with, which makes a lot of sense because Arizona doesn't work out of port of entries, at least as far as BPS, not with any regularity. And so twos are a good, they're good at the roadside. They don't require, you can do a two in a place you really can't do a one, but that isn't necessarily where it stays. And so, yeah, I'll reach out to, we'll work out something. Like I said, I know it can be added. I don't want to volunteer the state because obviously I also know the process of how tough it is. I just wonder if somebody knew, because I think there's some value.
Yep, absolutely. No, I appreciate it. What else? Anything else before we conclude?
I think Brandon had a comment down there that Kansas users.
Yeah, it looks like, yeah, he says Kansas uses drone funding to expedite crash investigation. They probably fly over, take measurements, right, Brandon? I don't know if Brandon, you can hit unmute. Yes, okay. Okay, and obviously it's a very similar, as you know, I think that's a very similar process. The quicker we clear crashes, less queue we have, less exposure. Okay, Brenda, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Thank you all very much for coming. I think this has been an excellent conference, safety summit. Look forward to the future. I look forward to everyone online being able to come here and have more interaction. I think that really sets it to the next level. So thank you and great job. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Brenda. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. That was a great closing session, lots of great takeaways. I just want to say a few additional closing remarks before we wrap up. So we will be sending out an evaluation survey to everyone, both that have been here in person as well as those online. Just take a few minutes to complete that. It'll be relatively short. Give us some feedback for possible future summits, topic suggestions, any kind of upcoming webinars, things you'd like to hear more about as well. Any feedback's great. Those of you who didn't get a chance to share your homework, share your takeaways, you can certainly provide it in that survey as well. So be looking for that. In terms of next steps, many of the presentations, if you've been online, are already posted up there for you to take a look, and the presenter's contact information is normally contained within those presentations as well. And we'll be posting any remaining ones. And in addition, we will be posting a summary document that captures some of the main ideas that came out of this summit, along with some photos and additional resources for you as well, and any upcoming events. And just one more time, just thank you so much for everyone that helped with this summit, FMCSA, the Colorado State Patrol staff, the rest of my NDSU staff, the speakers, and of course you, the attendees. It was, again, great to see so many people able to come here and attend in person, and just the value of that, as we've been talking about, is just marvelous. And basically the whole agenda was built from your suggestions. So everything you heard today was all suggestions, from you states. And so I think it was a fantastic agenda, lots of good information. And just wrap it up. Thanks again for coming, and safe travels.